Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel, Greg's Whiskey Guide, which is an extension of gregswhiskeyguide.com, the website, which is the website for 6 years or so, almost 7 now, and the YouTube channel, which I'm gonna celebrate in a few weeks the first year, so it's a very young channel for now. New make channel, if I may say. I wanted to start a new series. This is the first episode of a new series because from time to time I see here and there some questions about whiskey marketing in terms of how it can mislead the consumer and how we can be a bit put off by some indications on the labels or on the adverts, etc. This is barely a whole topic for a video. I think it had happened in the past. There were some beautiful videos about that. I think, for instance, Mike and the Whiskey Family in the past that did some video checking out advertising, whiskey advertising videos and decipher it for us. They had trouble also about that. So yes, I expect trouble about this topic. Maybe the companies won't be happy about what I'm saying. Maybe they're gonna try to suppress the video. And I hope for the best. Maybe comment under my video and explain how they think the things are, if they disagree, if they agree, and if they have some informations for you viewers that could help us understand why they say this or that on the labels or on their advertising. Well, for this number I tried to gather 2 topics. I hope it will work. 2 topics focused on label assertions, statements, I mean, what the label states, and also behind it what the concept to sell us more of this and to tell us that this is something exceptional. But before I start, I would like to do a disclaimer. So in order to make this clear, in this series I'm gonna talk about mainly bottles or brands or specific bottlings that I usually like or love or really enjoy. So it is not a question of revenge or because I have been put off by some expressions or by... It has nothing to do about unsatisfaction about the whiskey itself. So I hope it's clear. Maybe there will be some exceptions, but I will precise that. But for these 2 examples, I will take 2 one brand and one expression. These are 2 distilleries I like, and the first one I have visited even. The second not yet. For this I've been helped by some people and I use some articles I will precise later on and also in the description because some questions are highly technical, especially for the second brand / whiskey. But for the first one, to put a long story short, I'm gonna start by showing you this bottle with luxury packaging. It comes with a leaflet. See, nice cardboard. Glenmorangie, 18 years old. And this is the bottle I want to talk about. And apologies for the cork, which was way heavier. It's weighted with some iron, which had broke. That's why I cannot show you. I contacted the distillery to have through social media to have a replacement cork, but I couldn't get it. So if someone here has his bottle almost finished, by the way, I will be interested to get the cork, because it's very specific, and this one has nothing to do about the whiskey. So in case you wonder, it's a genuine Glenmorangie, so it is not a fake. Another question, interesting by the way. So what does this label state except the usual informations? It states here extremely rare 18 years old whiskey in a specific bottle, as for this one from the range the Signet, the 25 years old, and the vintage limited editions, for instance. So let me get it closer. So what does it say? It say it's extremely rare. So what does rare means for a whiskey? Usually we come across blended whiskies that state things that are absolutely not official statements that are in the laws and regulations about Scotch whiskey, for instance. Today we're going to speak only about Scotch whiskies, but there will be other episodes about other kinds of whiskies which might cause problem regulation-wise, such as Japanese whiskey. But for now, yeah, what does that mean? Often you come across advertising, or simply you go in the supermarket shelves and you're looking down to the cheaper ones, and they will all state aged in oak. Wow, fantastic! But it has to be aged in oak for Scotch regulations. So okay, so this is supposed to be advertisement written in big letters, but it doesn't. It just means it's aged in the regular way. Then you have rare reserve. You have selected reserve. What does that mean? Officially, nothing. It's not legal. I mean, it's not. You have the right to use it, but that doesn't mean nothing that it's legally required and mandatory or something like that. So you can have thousands of casks that are finishing to be in your whiskey bottle, and it will be selected very rare, etc. So why my point about this? Extremely rare. In the books, in internet, etc., where we can find a lot of information now, and way before that, I've asked stuff from the distillery about this one. They didn't give me the precise number of bottles, but I had information for a long time. This extremely rare whiskey was in fact bottled at least 1,500 bottles for French market, right? So what does that mean? That means French market for a distillery who produces around 6 million liters of pure alcohol per annum, most of them going to single malt Glenmorangie, because Bailey Nicole Jervy, a nice blend they were doing in the previous owners group, has been stopped. You can still find this, I think, in Highland Queen. I'm not 100% sure. And very, very few blended whiskies, but most of it goes to single malt. Of course, there's a 10 years old original. There are the 3 finishes, sherry, port, and sometimes and the Sauterne, Nectar d'Or. But so if it's 1,500 for France, add the European countries, probably you're gonna get to 500, 600, 700,000. Sorry. Then add the USA, add the Asia, etc. I don't have the precise number, so apologies about that. I did my researches, but I couldn't get answers or find information. But I thought it was interesting to start with this to speak about the concept of rarity. So for me, something that's over probably 10,000, I think I can risk this. It's a guess, of course. 10,000 bottles, it is not rare for me. So you want me to show you what is rare or a bit rarer, going to the most rare you can find. And rare here will not be necessary in terms of very demanded or very sought after collectors, unicorn stuff. No, it's the number of bottles it is stated. But I will give you examples here. So first thing that can be rare, of course, if it's you switch, you're still in the single malt category, for at one exception here on the table, but for most of the single malt category, you will have for your regular Colilla 12 years old, Bunnahabhain, Lagavulin, etc. At least you will probably have more than 500,000 bottles per year of your favorite whiskey. So it's not rarity, and it's blended. It's not a blended whiskey, but it's a blend of casks of the same distilleries that gives you the opportunity to taste the average style, which is rounded, more rounded, often caramel colored, chill filtered, etc. You have an average style of what is the distillery, basically. Then if you go to less number of casks, you will have more typical notes of some of the casks. And if you get down to single cask, you will have some notes that are common to the distillery, but some that might differ from the other cask, even the one just before it, as I saw in distillery last year, where we were presented 4 casks with different levels of content with the angel share, which was very weird, and also different tastes. So I said, whoa, they're 1 centimeter or 2 from the other, and they differ so much. Yes, it's the mystery of warehouses and the magic, if we may say, of whiskey. But yeah, beyond this statement, if it had to be, let's not say for now extremely rare, but rare. Let's start with this magnificent Glenmorangie Petite Peaks cask, finish 2010. This is rare, relatively rare, because it's a distillery exclusive. So it's only bottled at the distillery. I don't have the number of bottles here written or even in my searches, but might be around 1,000 or a few thousand bottles maximum. So you see, it's less than 10,000, and it might be less than 1,500 as well. Then what else do you have? You have this, which is another case, which is the store pick. So store exclusives cask selection. There they say there is 2 casks, and the result is 965 bottles. So we're under 1,000. Okay. So what other cases we have? Sorry. With this one, we are going under to 300. We're in 262 cask bottles. Sorry. So this is an independent bottling, a single cask of Cragganmore. Beautiful one, by the way. Bottled a long time ago, yes, 2008. Not much left, but it's a wonder. Then if we go down, distillery exclusive, but bottle your own, we're around a few hundreds. I don't have the precise number. This was taken, bottled, not exactly by myself because I didn't have time, but by the staff. But there's some writing and signing explaining everything. At the distillery, a magnificent 18 years old single cask. It says hand filled. Now if you want to go into more rarity, we can go to rarity, which is related to the possibility to find it after it is sold, so secondary market, and also the different markets, and there were not many. Of course, we can speak about Sullivan's Cove, which is an Australian craft distillery brand from the Tasmania distillery. This was produced in only 126 bottles in 2010. So yeah, you can see now with this camera everything, right? Wonderful. So this is, you can call not extremely rare, but rare, I think, at least. Then if you want to come across rarer, you have the cases where you have more numbers than 100 or 200, probably 500, 300. There's a special edition of cask strength bottled sorry, during Whiskey Live Paris 2009, but it is signed by John Glaser, so this is different. So you see, there are different levels of rarity. Excuse me. Then if you're gonna go to the Irish, I said only Scotch, but this is a Connemara made by Cooley, single cask, and as you can maybe read, sorry, there's only 146 bottles of this single cask. Another Irish, which is very rare, this absolute magnificent undisclosed single malt, but we know it's Bushmills from the Nectar. It was a Christmas gift for me, but I tasted it in a show. Wonderful 24 years old Bushmills, to be open soon, I hope. So there you go. Now we're gonna I'm gonna give you two examples of extremely rare, and two different examples to finish with this. To put a long story short, I was in London at Cadenhead shop for a tasting for my birthday a few years ago, and they did a special bottling for the occasion for visitors who pay their ticket to do the tasting. Everybody can have this, not this bottle, but this kind of bottle. And the gentleman who was there filled the bottle till this point with a cask end, and this was Lowlands. And for the rest here, I had to pick some of the whiskies we tasted, and I picked some very rare, interesting stuff, aged, and 26 years old Blair Ethel, 34 years old maybe Colila, stuff like that. Unfortunately, I couldn't choose myself, select, and see the level of everything I was putting in, and see if it works, etc. So it's a bit of half random thing. But there you go. And as you can see, it's not really something common. So bottled in 2015. Doesn't say one exemplary only. It's not signed, but there is, oh yeah, it is signed here. There is only one of this. But everyone can go to the shop, this and other shops. It's not advertising. And you can do this and also bottle your own in some other occasions. You want to see even more rarer, and I forgot the regular bottle, that's it. Cognac independent bottler and cognac maker, because he raised the cask, he gets the distillate and make it mature longer, etc. Marriage of casks. I had the opportunity to do a blending session with Guilhem Gros-Perrin from the Cognac Gros-Perrin, and instead of bottling it into his regular bottle, he picked for the only person, and I will say a half, because there were a couple who choose half a bottle in a regular bottle, not colored glass, etc. their exemplary of one of the blending we made. But for this one, I am the only person who bought a bottle of this cognac, so it is signed by Guilhem for Grégoire. It starts to get off now, and there's a proportion, fin bois, grand champagne, etc., of the cask, and the majority of them is 30 to 40 years old, and it's cask strength, and the rest of it is there, guys. So can't really sample for everyone and offer, but who knows, maybe in some occasions, and if you come by. So that was it for the first topic. Sorry. And now stay tuned for the second one. So the second one is about peat and about advertising of how your whiskey is peated and how it can be an absolutely exceptional whiskey because it is heavily peated. And what I'm talking about, of course, I'm talking about Octomore. And sorry, it's my only bottle. It's the 5.1. It's quite old bottling, 18,000 bottles from, I think, 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Wait a minute. Sorry, guys. Check this. This is raw. There's no montage. There's no editing here. We're trying to do things as natural as possible. Yeah, 2012. Sorry, guys. So for this topic, I looked a bit in internet to find some background to help me explain something. We'll give you some links, and big shout out to Rombout from ILADDIE blog, which is ILADDIE Whisky Nerd blog, which is from Netherlands, and he's an absolute geek. I don't think there's geeker than him, except the master blenders and whiskey makers all around. Doesn't mean he answers to everything, but to on the chemical scientific point of view, he has almost the answer to everything. But then again, there's the part, there's scientific, and there's another part, there's more of impression, guessing, experience of tasting. So please take what I'm gonna say with a pinch of salt, but at the same time give me the chance to maybe be right about what I'm gonna state, which is a bit out of my comfort zone and out of anyone's comfort zone, because I wrote this already, but I think not many people have seen it, unfortunately, and I haven't read or heard this anywhere. So I might be wrong about what I'm gonna say, but I think as long as it's not demented publicly, and I would like it and love it to be, and I also love to have a way to scientifically have the evidence that I'm right about it or not, but not sure. Somebody could help me for that. He has to have a laboratory. We're going to speak about peat, which is measured in phenols, but I read that phenols are not only about peat, it's more general. Peat is only one part of it. It's reading to Rombout that I learned that. So the famous parts per million ppm level gives you, in fact, the level of peat before distilling, so during the malting process. And when you're, as I read in some articles there, some say that when you, many say, and even the producers admit it, when you distill your whiskey and then you age it, you're losing almost, let's say there's 60-70% of your peat, and the result is only 30 to 40% of what you have previously. So when the brands announce a proportion of peat, an amount of peat in ppm, bear in mind that it means only in the beginning of the process of making whiskey. I mean, once the barley is prepared for malting. So, for instance, just a quick recap for those who don't know much. The regular 12 years old, for instance, of Bunhaven, is peated between 3 and 5 ppm. So it's almost not discernible, right? Of course, there's the Torcha and other heavily peated expressions, the Moine, that goes probably over 30 to 40 ppm. I don't know exactly, but it's heavily peated. I got beautiful examples in my collection of these. Highland Park, which is not in Islay, we're going to speak mainly in Islay here. But Highland Park, which is way north and uses another kind of peat, it's usually around 20 ppm, except some recent the Valfather expression. And in the 70s, where they use at some years to peat more than the average they usually do. So you have some, for instance, Orcadian vintages, don't remember which one, 71 or 67, that are amazingly more peated than the usual ones, and the age statement, of course, ones. Then you have Bowmore around 20 to 25 ppm, Lefroy between 30 and 45, but as the smoke is very special, sometimes it's more like 45 or 50 than 30. Lagavulin between 30 and 35, as I read. Kilchoman around 40. Ardbeg around 50-55 ppm, except for Supernova that was higher. So it is considered usually that a light peated whiskey is around 3 to 15 ppm. Medium peat is between 15 to 20 or a bit more, and heavy peat begins around 30, even if it's for me more around 40-50. Okay, Port Charlotte, we're gonna speak about, let me put that, we're gonna speak about Octomore. So Octomore is from the Bruichladdich distillery. And for those who hate the opaque bottles, there you have it. I poured myself a bit of this one, which I recently opened. I poured also myself this Port Askeg 100 proof to compare it. This Finlagan cast strength undisclosed single malt, probably around 7-8 years old. The Octomore is 5 years old. And just for pleasure of comparing something probably not comparable, a bit lower ABV with an old 12 years old cast strength Lagavulin. The two last being caramel colored and chill filtered. The two first are not. So yeah, I know I have to be quick, so I'm not gonna give you all the details, but to come to my point, yeah, Octomore started with 1.1, 131 ppm, which is way over the Ardbeg. Then the 5.1 was stating on the label 169 ppm, as you can see here. After the 5, they state it and they explain it, but it's not easy to read. You can go on the website and they tell you not everything, but they tell you more about the brand. Then the 7.1 went to the, I think it's not the most, 208 ppm. The 8.3, 309 ppm. The 9.1 gets down to 156, and the 10.3, one of the very last, only 114 ppm. So now what's going on? The lower, yeah, by the way, the lower is the 10 years old, the reduced 10 years old Octomore at 80.5 ppm only. But there were other experiments that we're not hearing too much of. So the argument behind Octomore is to state it is very high in ppm because they try to do something very strong to break records and also to make us feel what is a heavily peated really. And the argument saying that is different is that they and is more peated than the others is because they change a bit the process. In fact, they change it at a time with wider cut, 30 minutes more, 40 minutes more, yeah, they say. Then they pulled it back to have the same level of cut of the distillate with the Port Charlotte and the Bruichladdich, which is not peated. And basically they explained that for the Octomore, the difference is they started to peat, to smoke with peat the barley way before the usual process, which is 5 days. 5 days of peating and then of drying. So for this one, it's only 2.5, they say. It's how they explain that it is more heavily peated. And also they explain the fact this is refined by a slow distillation, tall stills. And if I can read myself, whoa, yeah, they peating sooner. So yeah, you can have even more explanation here. I will give you the link to our ILADDIE Whisky Nerd website, where he explains the different kinds of peat, levels of peat. It's really really too complicated and too long to state here. But my point, I'm gonna make come to my point now. My point is I've been tasting whiskey for 20 years and I came across Octomore about maybe 10 years ago, and except a few expressions, and this one is almost the contrary because it's one of the harshest, honestly, I've tried, but it's the only one I could get. It was a low price at that time, if we may say low price for a 5 years old, 100 euros. I always had the impression that something was not going on right with the statement of heavily peated, and I didn't understood why. Since I tried, it was probably the 6.1 or 7.1, or which was, let's remind us, 7.1. It was the stronger, 208 ppm. I think the 6 was a bit lower. Anyway, since I tried this, I said to myself, there's something not going on, because it's only 5 years old. It's really heavily peated, and the guys who are used to Ardbeg 10, Uigedail, the old Uigedails, Supernova, etc., they know it's can be very harsh, right? Even some Lagavulins from yesteryear, Lafroigs. So there's something that doesn't match for me with the ppm stated, even if it's lost a bit during the process of distilling and then maturing. Let's say from 169 for this one to 100, it's still much more than 55 for Ardbeg, but it's still drinkable. I'm gonna show you. So this is neat, believe me or not. Yeah, the peat is strong. If I compare it to the Port Askeg, which is 2 years more and only 2% less ABV, but 2 years more aged. It's sweeter, but the organic and green elements of it are stronger than in the Octomore. Then if I compare to the Finlagan cast strength, which is probably the undisclosed Lagavulin, yeah, 58. It's kind of sweet. Lagavulin 12, a bit sweeter, obviously, and it's 56.4, right? So let's try this Octomore. It is strong. There is nice peat. It's a kind of ashy peat this time. Not the case of every Octomore, but it's one of the most ashiest peat. So yeah, there is something very thin in there for me. And by intuition, by guessing, I had the impression that it was not something that was made usually like the double distillation for most of the whiskies, except for instance Ochentoshen. It's not peated, so that's why I didn't pour it. It's not the same idea. Springbank 2.5 distillation, they say Mortlach 2.81, which is hard to understand. But for me, this is triple distilled. Yes, it's my guess, impression, statement. It is not an information, though I'm going to tell you it could be. But this is my impression. This is for me triple distilled. Why? Because prior to the Octomores, or just at the very beginning, Bruichladdich did an experiment called X4 plus 3, something like that. They recently made another one, even with Octomore, I think, which was a quadruple distilled Bruichladdich unpeated. So 4 times distilled Bruichladdich. And it was a wonderful whiskey. I almost bought a bottle, and it was too late. I was a bit hesitating. But I had a sample home. I didn't compare it because I didn't have the idea of what I say here could be right. But when thinking of it later on in another show, I tried the Octomore, the next Octomore, probably 6 or 7 reference, 0.1 always. I said to myself, there's something that's very close to that one. I don't understand. I take the 4 distillations, it's a bit maybe too far. It was very thin, like a very refined vodka or whatever, a white spirit that's very well made and rounded. But it wasn't harsh as a Port Charlotte or as a Nordberg, heavily peated. Doesn't mean it's bad, but I think you get my point here. So straightforward peat, if you like, if you rather like. So for me, the secret was there. And then I get into a show, another show, and I tried once again this kind of Octomore. I said to myself, come on, this is not double distilled, but triple. I'm going to put some water in it. And then I asked the ambassador, the brand ambassador, well, I can give you the name in private, but I don't want to put him into trouble. I might be myself now. But when I said him, sir, just between us, the others not hearing, I have the impression it's triple distilled, not twice. What do you say? Am I dreaming? Or you're right, sir, he told me. But he wasn't allowed to state it publicly, I guess. Because why? Because if he states that publicly, that means the argument that it is super heavily peated, it explodes to sell the whiskey. So if you say to people, yeah, it's very strong in peat, you're gonna have a blast, etc. You state it's a 5 years old, you state the ABV, but you don't tell it's triple distilled, so that means you're gonna lose a lot of that peat content written here. You see what I mean? So if you don't state it and you arrive to that point that you guess it if you're experienced and you think they're misleading in the label, they're a bit cheating with us, what they say, despite their transparency policy and statements. So I think based on this information he gave me, which I know reps sometimes can be playing with what they are told, but this was one as an experienced one I met in several occasions, so I know it was not just to please me. But now I cannot tell you because I didn't have any other confirmations after that is 100% true. So it's just my guessing I wanted to submit to you. And also it's a reason to debate. If you have informations or ideas, opinions about that, please comment on that and tell me. Might be wrong. But there you go. That was basically what I wanted to say to you. I'm going to taste quickly the port Askeg. Sweeter because less peated, but still very strong in character, a bit more than this one I think. Then Finlagen. Strong stuff, and with some characteristic mouth coating leather and green elements, moss and seaweed. That for me that says Lagavulin, but I might be wrong. Now I put some water in the Octomore, so I'm not gonna compare without. So this is Lagavulin 12, guys, 65.4. Wow, wonderful mouth coating, less alcohol impression. So I'm putting now water to everyone to finish the tasting and demonstration. I don't know if you're gonna be convinced by that. Not saying it's the gospel. Okay, so now let's try the Octomore a bit diluted. Very thin, honestly. Could be even another spirit now. The smoke is almost gone. Amazing. Now let's go to Port Askeg, which is almost in the same category, let's say. Almost. Yeah, I forgot to say, sorry everyone. 59.5 ABV. Sorry, I just 59.5 ABV. Port Askeg it's 57, 58 for the Finlagen, and 56 and 4 for Lagavulin. Oh, I love that Port Askeg. It's better balanced than the Octomore, but it has something that's richer, despite the maybe the age, and also it's I think probably a bigger vatting of cask, where this one is 18,000, so not very rare as well, mind you. So yeah, Finlagen diluted now. Very sweet, more on citrus fruit, on esters. Betrays a young age, probably 6. So yeah, in a way you can compare these more than the Lagavulin, but the official one. Let's finish by this one. So thank you very much for watching. Please give me your impressions. Disagree, agree. Is it interesting? Am I opening some door here that I shouldn't have opened? I hope nobody will sue me, Bruichladdich or Glenmorangie. Yeah, I'm preparing other numbers. I need some materials for some to compare things to you for you and make you understand my point of views. We're going to speak again about casks. We're going to speak about many things related to whiskey, and we're going to speak again about marketing. So Slanjeva. Beautiful Lagavulin. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I'm over 45 minutes again, sorry. Stay tuned for other numbers and live coming in soon about bourbons with a specialist with me. Cheers, take care.